I'm Rachel Horgan. Join me each episode as I sit down with a guest co-host covering the latest business stories in the Seattle area. We'll read the news so you don't have to. This is The Weekly. Hey everybody, we've got a special episode coming out on Tuesday, mostly because I got throwback COVID. I think I tested negative, but boy did it feel like it. And I don't know if I'm getting older and weaker or if I just forgot how bad that was and how long it lasts. So I'm through it. It's been a week now. And that just really put me on my ass. So I'm sorry I didn't get this out sooner. I was watching every TV episode that ever existed. But I'm back now. Before that happened, I operated that Alaska Airlines event that I talked about in the episode with Nick, and it went well. One thing I'd recommend for people that I really liked was that they did custom name badges for all the guests, and it was something that they could take home with them and wear if they wanted to on future events. It was really kind of a classy thing. And we had different themed rooms for the Rome route, the London route, and the Reykjavik route. So it wasn't over the top themey, but it still was done really well. So thank you to them. The other thing is last week I was at the Northwest Event Show. It's super, super fun. One day is for content and the next day is for a trade show. It's for anybody and everybody in the events industry. And on Tuesday at the Seattle Convention Center, I interviewed David T. Stevens. He is an event wellness architect, and we talk all about how important it is to think about health and wellness when you're planning an event, not just because it's fun and makes people feel good. There's a direct business impact to your bottom line when you think about things like temperature, food, timing, sleep, all of that kind of stuff. And it's really, really interesting. And I encourage people to listen, even if you're not in the events industry, not an event planner. These things translate to even your, if you have a board meeting coming up and you want to think about temperature, food, timing, all of that kind of stuff, inclusion, belonging. It really can make a difference in more than just conference planning. So I'm going to play the recording of our conversation that we had, and I hope you enjoy it. Hello, hello. Thank you. I love this crowd in the front. Yes, that's right. I host the weekly Seattle podcast. It's a roundup of Seattle business news in the area. And every week I interview a different CEO and we talk about kind of business strategy and making it less confusing. So when I was talking to David, this just made perfect sense to talk about how business interacts with events and especially event design. So before we start this session, this whole thing is about wellness and structuring your agenda. And we know we all just had lunch. So we're going to put into practice some of the things we're going to talk about later today. So David, what should we do?
All right. I figure we could start with some of you who know me. You'll probably recognize this. There's the gentleman who started a company called Splash. Do you remember that?
No.
It was an event tech company called Splash that they sold to Cvent for some undisclosed.
As companies do.
This 7, 8, almost 9 budget number. Anyways, this gentleman, Ben Hidman, I used to call it the Ben, but he used to do this exercise with people he did it a lot during the pandemic between Zooms when we were Zoom after Zoom after Zoom to really break things up, get your body, mind, heart connection going. So I figure it's after lunch. We're experiencing what's called the postprandial dip.
Postprandial dip.
That's that's the clinical term for what happens mid-afternoon after a meal. And so what we're going to do is we're going to do a little physical activity here. Just get the blood flowing a little bit, wake us up. So we're all going to stand up.
Okay.
Slide that back. All right. And then this is tricky with handheld mic because I got to change mics. But give yourself enough room. Okay, cool. So everybody knows a hokey pokey, right?
Yep.
You ever done a hokey pokey?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. It's going to feel a little bit like that. What we're going to do is you're going to pick an arm, and then you're going to shake and count for 5, but you got to count out loud.
Okay.
And then you're going to do the other arm.
Okay.
Count out loud for 5. Then you're going to do one leg, count to 5. Then you're going to do the other leg, count to 5. Then we're going to go through it again from 4, then again from 3, then again from 2, then again from 1. And we'll see what happens. So everybody pick your arm that you're going to start with, and we'll shake, count out loud with me. 5, 4,
3.
We got to start over. Everybody. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Other arm. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Leg. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Other leg. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
This is harder in here.
Arm. 4, 3, 2, 1. 4, 3, 2, 1. 4, 3, 2, 1. 4, 3, 2, 1. I gotta hear you. Arm.
3, 2,
3,
1.
2, 1. 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. 2, 1. 2, 1. 2, 1. 2, 1. 1, 1, 1, 1. Okay, and you're done.
Woo! The last one feels like we're in a dance together.
Yeah. Just a little something to, shake things up.
Yeah. For those that went to Cascadia one year, we did in the middle of the day a 0.2 walk. It was play on a 26.2 walk, but it was 0.2 walk. And we all got stickers at the end that we did it. But yes, movement's important. So we are going to talk a little bit more about kind of the science of all of that. But thank you for getting us ready. So wellness can sometimes feel like this woo-woo, at an incentive trip, you get this yoga class, whatever. But help us understand, how do you convince a planner or a client that there's real business strategy behind some of the stuff you're talking about?
Well, first, I want to address the term woo-woo because
please.
I had someone on my podcast a couple of years ago, and it was before we actually started the podcast, like getting ready to start filming, and I said woo-woo, and I could just feel her clench up, and I was like, oh, we got to talk about that.
Yeah.
And so then we dug into it, and she said, well, essentially what you're doing is you're discrediting what someone has taken the time and effort to learn as a practice. Mm-hmm. And it might be an ancient thing that their people have been doing for not even decades, but centuries.
Right.
And you just don't understand it, so you lump it into something and you call it woo-woo. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, I didn't know I was a wellnessist.
Wellnessist, yeah.
And so it was a great perspective, because just because you don't understand it doesn't mean you should discredit it, right? Mm-hmm. So there's that. But also on the flip side, the whole point of all of this, and the only way an executive is going to care about using wellness as a strategy at your events, is if you can tell them how it's going to impact the bottom line.
Right.
Like if you can't tell me why, let's call it bunny yoga, is going to impact the bottom line, then why am I going to spend $1,500, $2,500 on it? That does, let's put it into, providing higher end liquor at the bar.
It's so true. I think if you just say it'll be good for people, it'll help them not be stressed. When you're pitching to leadership, C-suite, they want dollars.
Yes. Yeah.
So what's some kind of do you have data that supports this argument that you can share?
Why, thank you for asking. There's actually an Oxford study that they tracked stock prices of companies where well-being was higher versus the standard indexes. So they reached out to all these companies. They did an entire survey it was a well-being 100 index, essentially. And it was companies that scored in the top 100 of all the companies surveyed, where the companies felt the wellest. Their stocks outperformed every other index, wow. S&P 500, Dow Jones, etc., which, if we really pause and think about it, shouldn't be anything mind-blowing, because look at athletes. To perform their best, they sleep, mm-hmm. they eat good food, they practice, they believe in their team. You can use that parallel when you think about work, and events is a team sport. But if you look at that parallel, there's no reason that people within corporations shouldn't be doing the same thing. So the concept of, oh my God, when people are well slept, well fed, well connected, they perform better?
What?
How groundbreaking. It's not, but we've gotten so caught up in hustle culture that we think just piling content on session on top of session on top of, that's what value is, when it's not.
Mm-hmm. It's true. And especially when we think about sales training conferences and are these people actually learning and all of that. So your framework is built around these 4 M's: mindful, movement, meaning, and meals. Can you briefly kind of walk us through what that means for you?
Sure. So mindfulness, from a planner perspective, I like to reframe it, because people usually think meditation or that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. I think about it as participant expectations. Okay. What are we asking of the people attending our conference to do while they're there? Are we depriving them of sleep? Are we feeding them terrible food? Are we running them into the ground? Or are we supporting their well-being? So that's mindfulness. With that, movement, do they get the opportunity to move their bodies in the way that they like to? Wellness means different things to different people. And if you only offer yoga at one time during the day, you're really alienating a whole nother group of people because you only offered one thing. There might be people who want to do rage yoga. There might be people who want to do Pilates, whatever. I'm not saying you have to have a wellness festival at it, but offer some options and survey your crowd so that you know how people like to move. The other thing is in your general session room, you should always have high boys at the back of the room.
I've noticed this. People like to stand.
Some people because they're back.
Yes.
Different reasons. Who cares? But if you put the tables at the back of the room, they at least know they're seen and they feel like they belong.
Yeah, I've seen some clients do the silent disco headphones.
Oh,
so
okay.
then people can sit for the session or they can stand in the back for the session. Same idea, but yes, yeah.
So mindfulness, movement, meals is really straightforward. But I did have a conversation with a dietitian on the direct causation, not correlation, but causation of how you feed people and their ability to pay attention.
Say more.
So think about the traditional continental breakfast.
Yeah, fruit, cup yogurt.
Otherwise known as carbicide, I like to call it. You're offering hardly any fiber, most likely, all sugars. So that's why by 10:30 you have to give people more caffeine and more sugar to get them back stabilized because they're crashing from the high sugary breakfast. Fiber is the secret weapon.
Fiber. Okay.
Fiber regulates blood sugar. You can if you have a dessert that's got a good amount of fiber in it, it actually helps regulate your blood sugar so it's more even. That's why they say you should eat your fruit and drink your vegetables if you're a juicer because you don't want to lose the fiber. Then it regulates that blood sugar so it maintains your attention. And protein, obviously. Well, we all know everything has protein now.
Yeah.
But it's also important with the increase of GLP-1s, there's a lot more people looking for more protein because it's literally been prescribed from their doctors. Yeah. So it's not even just the gym rats like myself and others that have been always looking for protein. People are being told by their doctors they need more. And the last thing is meaning, and that's really connecting people to something bigger than themselves. And that can be a CSR or corporate social responsibility volunteering thing, or it can even be OKR building. So we did at a sales kickoff, we used building OKRs with your team.
Wait, OKRs, what is that?
Objective and key result. Sorry, that's full-on corporate
Very
lingo.
corporate speaking.
My bad. But it's objectives and key results. It's basically your team goals.
Okay.
And you usually set them at the beginning of the year. The company has a big giant one, and then each department has their own, and then each team within each department has their own, and team members come up. So, but if you build those together, you're actually seeing how the company works and supports each other. And all of a sudden, you're not working in a silo. You understand how your contributions contribute to the overall company strategy. It's like back in the day, there's this analogy of JFK walking through NASA prior to going to the moon, if you believe in the moon. And JFK asked he saw a janitor and he said, "What's your job here?" And he said, "Getting a man on the moon."
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Yeah, we all know that story. So it doesn't have to necessarily be a volunteer thing, even though that's great and warm and fuzzy, and I love it. But just giving people something to connect with really leaves them with a set sense of intention and that their time was well spent at that event.
Yeah, very well said. I want to shift a little bit into venue/inclusion. So you talk a lot about light and temperature and air and noise and movement, like you said, in meetings. What's an example of one that planners forget? Or do you have a specific story of something that you advise clients when you're thinking about the venue and things like that?
I mean, the thing that usually gets forgotten is sleep.
I agree, because I think what gets talked about a lot is temperature, because like women are cold and we're like, yes, we are.
I read somewhere that the standard temperature setting was figured out in like the 1800s or something like that, and it was decided upon by men while they were wearing wool suits.
I've heard that too. Yeah.
So yeah, but then you got to go into the flip side of it of like perimenopausal and menopausal women, which is a completely different.
That's true. They're hot. Yeah.
Group of people as well. So it's like, okay, where do we do? So yeah, temperature is important. Also, you got to think about that because after lunch, if your room is cold, you're cold already after lunch because all the blood goes to your stomach to digest your food. Okay. So you're inherently going to be colder after a meal. You might warm up afterwards, processing everything, but the blood gets down there, and so usually your hands will be a little cold afterwards. But yeah, we got to think about the temperature in the room, but we also got to think about sleep.
Yeah. So tell me more about that, because we were talking about agendas, and there's always these TikToks where it's like, oh, the 7 minutes I have to get ready before I go back down to team dinner. Yeah. Talk to me about sleep and how we should think about it as planners.
Okay, so I interviewed a sleep doctor,
Okay.
and she said one real core thing that stuck with me, and it's in Inside Out 2,
Yeah.
and it's
Great
real.
movie.
When you sleep is when you convert short-term memory into long-term memory,
Okay.
and it frees up space for more short-term memory. So if your objective for an event is for people to learn, and you're depriving them of the ability to get a full night's sleep, you are literally undermining your own objective, because you're not giving their brain the physiological time to process what they learned. Another fun fact, your brain washes itself at night.
What?
Your brain like shrinks a little bit, and all the fluids
Whoa.
like move around. I was like, wait, really? And she's like, yeah, it's real.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that's a
well.
fun fact.
Since you kind of brought it up, I want to shift over actually and talk about the agenda, because we're talking about sleep, and we all know that programs can be very over-programmed, and they're like, oh, we have a 15-minute break. Let's add this thing into this 15-minute break. So when you are advising clients and working with clients in terms of agenda structure, what do you recommend? Is the hour session gone by the wayside?
Well, I always start with agenda, because you could offer the greatest wellness things ever, but if people have no time to go do them, then what's the point? You're just throwing money away.
Yeah.
I sat down with a woman who's a PhD, an MD, and a professor. And she talked about how taking your keynotes from 60 minutes to 40 minutes and adding a 20-minute peer debriefing will actually make all of the information that much more stickier. That's a lot of good English I just used there. Grammar police, don't come at me. But the idea being is, we're sitting here having a conversation, right? And this person is taking notes. That person isn't. I said something earlier, and someone else over there went, oh. You're going to take away different things.
Sure.
And when you sit down and have a conversation with one of your peers, and you just facilitate a simple question, hey, what was your favorite part of that session? Or what's one thing you took away from that? They're probably going to have something completely different than you.
Yeah.
And they're going to word it completely differently than me or you. So it's going to get processed in a different way on top of that. Now, in addition to that, if you want to get into the physiological science behind it, there's this thing called the forgetting curve.
The forgetting curve. Okay.
Yes. And essentially, if you don't re-engage in content or with that content within 48 hours, you're likely to forget at least 80% of it.
Well, okay. One more time. If you don't engage with that content within 48 hours, you're going to forget 80% of it.
At least 80% of it.
Wow.
If you don't re-engage with content within 48 hours of hearing it, you're going to forget at least 80% of it.
So you had the story about reframing what journaling means, because there was a section about journaling, and this kind of goes back to your point about remembering things. Can you share that story and how you pitched it?
Yeah. So we did a thing last year at IMEX called Circadian Cove, and we offered a forgetting curve journaling class. Okay. And what it was a guided journaling class where we had prompts. But it was on the last day. It was at approximately, I think, 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And we had people come in, and we just had them go through a few prompts. Who was the best meeting you had with? Who are you most excited to follow up with? What session was your favorite? What did you learn? Just kind of went through 5-10 questions. Wasn't super extensive or anything. But there was 3 things that were going to happen with that. One of them is made up, and hopefully at some point I'll have some funding and I can do a scientific study. But the first thing is, you're going to have everything buttoned up. You're going to know what you're doing. You're going to go home with a plan, and that's going to inherently increase your perceived value of the event because you're documenting. So when someone asks you, oh, how was the conference? Oh, it was great. That's normally the response, right?
Right.
You're going to say, oh, it was great. I met this person. We talked about this.
Yeah.
I went to this session. I learned about blah. You already have your debrief for when you end the office. It's going to be like, oh, wow, that was really worth our time. Yeah. The second thing is, you're going to get home from that conference, and when you walk in the door, you've been gone for 3, maybe 4 days, everyone's all up in your business, And if you don't have a family, that's okay. Your pets are probably all up in your business. And you can be present because you're not trying to remember all the things you need to do because you kind of took care of it. Yeah. Now, here's the one I made up that I'm really excited about. I think you're going to sleep better.
Because of journaling?
Yes, because journaling before bed has clinically proven to improve sleep because you close all your loops. Open loops drive your brain crazy when you sit there at night and you can't fall asleep. It's all the things you're thinking about or need to do or whatever. That's because you have open loops. You're coming home from that conference with all those open loops closed.
Yeah.
So in theory, you should sleep better, let alone you're just home and you're in your own bed on top of everything else. But you go home, you can be present with your family, and you get a great night's sleep. When you wake up the morning after that travel day, after that conference, you're not going to be like, oh, God, I need another day off.
Right.
You're going to feel amazing. And that's what we're all trying to do in this business.
Yeah. Well, and I liked, because a lot of our jobs as planners is pitching to clients or C-suite. And I think you had talked about not using the word journaling, and you said it was a
forgetting curve
class.
Class.
Yeah. So
you can use the clinical study term. It sounds way cooler to, especially to people like, I don't need to journal.
Yeah.
So,
but I think in our, like, a lot of the facts that you've been given is helpful in our conversations of, there's data behind a lot of this.
Yes.
So do you have an opinion on break times? I don't know if you do or not, because we talked about session times being 40 minutes and 20 minutes discussion. Is there a standard for breaks?
I feel like breaks should be at least 30 minutes.
Okay.
Especially depending on if you're doing food and or snacks and bathrooms. It gives people, if you're doing a 40-20 and then 10 minutes in between, that probably can work because people are going to, if they're not into it, which not everyone will be, and that's fine, they can go and do whatever. But yeah, I like to keep breaks at least 30 minutes.
Okay. Perfect. This is some really good information. I'm working with a client right now with an agenda for their conference, so I'm going to take all of this to our meeting.
Just let me know where to send the invoice.
I know, seriously. Okay, so another piece of this is kind of inclusion and belonging we talked about. So do you have another example of how to be kind of culturally aware and simple things that planners can change so participants can feel like they belong?
Yeah, I think one of the things I mentioned earlier is wellness means different things to different people. And when you offer only one option of wellness activation, you're essentially saying the way everyone else wants to experience wellness doesn't matter. If you only offer a run and yoga, what about the person that wants to lift weights? What about the person who has limited mobility? What about, it's the same thing with alcohol, right? Like if it's a bar that only has alcohol, then the people who don't drink alcohol don't get anything. If it's a completely dry bar, then the people who want to drink don't have anything. It's just as exclusionary. So what this really is about is, as actually someone in the audience called it a while back, JT, she said it's about agency. And I was like, yeah, it's about empowering people to experience the conference on their terms and not ours. And that goes back to mindfulness and being mindful of what we're asking of these people. And if we're building out exclusionary practices or if we're building out inclusionary ones, from the bar to the way the room is set to the space between the chairs to the closed captioning, all those things.
Yeah.
So it just because, especially when it's you're claiming health and well-being is important to you, and then you alienate a bunch of people.
Right.
Like Planet Fitness does, right? Like they make fun of people who are in ridiculously good shape, who have worked their ass off, by the way.
Yeah, yeah.
But they're then mocking the other side,
right.
and they call themselves a no judgment zone. But their brand is built off judgment.
That's a very good point. Yes.
So yeah, it's really about being inclusionary and yes and not trying to make people's decisions for them.
So what does that look like in practice? Is that a question on the registration form? Is that, hey, here are your 3 activity options this morning?
So my favorite thing to do is ask what wellness means to you on the registration form. And
open-ended kind of thing?
I usually create a big, long list of stuff and then use an open-ended question as well, because you might end up with something that you didn't even know was out there. We had someone who we were doing an event for, and it turned out the executive was really into this weird, it was like a combo of like Zumba and spin class.
Fun. Okay.
I don't know. But it turned out the whole entire group was into it.
Oh.
But there's no instructors in the U.S.
Oh.
So
What'd you do?
you fly the instructor in.
That's right.
Unrealistic hospitality, right?
Yeah.
It's an opportunity just to surprise and delight those people who may have thought, I'll never get to do this. I've only ever seen it on social media. And then all of a sudden they get to do something they never thought they'd get to do.
Yeah.
That changes the way that person experiences the rest of the conference.
Yeah, absolutely. What about in terms of inclusion? I've had a client, and this is becoming more popular, to have a reflection room or a quiet room. People call it different things for people that are possibly neurodivergent, or maybe they just need a quiet moment. Do you think those are working, or are we just checking a box?
I think it can be both.
Okay.
It's an important box, and I know sometimes I've gone to those like dinners where you're in a PDR and it's just so loud, and I was like, I just need to get the hell out of here.
Yeah.
I think as long as they're done with integrity, that's what's really important. I've seen them done at industry events where people are in there like taking calls.
Yes.
And one time there was someone changing, and I was like, that's not what this is for.
But if there is a space to take a call, let me tell you, attendees will find it.
Which is fine. But if
Yeah.
you're going to build a space like that,
Yeah.
protect it for those people.
I agree. I mean, I think signage, staffing, and then also making sure it's not just a room, kind of having nice lighting and maybe comfortable seating. Like you said, making sure you're intentional about building those kinds of things.
That will always win on any of these principles, is ensuring there's intention behind it, because people feel that. They know when something's done intentionally and when something's an afterthought.
Yeah. My one quick example is I did an event. We had a lot of high boys and we had Adirondack chairs and lounge furniture, but all of our stuff was high. And we did like some food. So people were eating at the high tops or sitting in the Adirondack. Didn't occur to me that if somebody was in a wheelchair, there was no low table for them to wheel up to. So, I think we can think that we're we've got seating and mixed seating and all that. Is there anything else like along those lines of something that's easy to forget about that we need to make sure we're including?
I think an easy win, I'll talk to food.
Okay.
Food's an easy one with deconstructing things and just pulling the sauce off of it and having it on the side, or taking the salad and have it make your own salad. The little things like that are really simple tweaks. The other thing you can do is also change the order of the way the buffet is laid out, because inevitably all the carby starches are at the front because they know people are going to fill their plates with that. If you put your veggies at the front, or whatever, fruits or that kind of thing, then go to your protein, then put the rest at the end, that will help ensure the blood sugar gets regulated.
Wow, I didn't think about that.
And it's simple to do. I think the other thing is, don't get rid of dessert.
Really?
I have a sweet tooth.
Okay.
And I will eat a bland salad on the front end so I can have a cookie, as opposed to having, but some people are savory people, right?
Sure.
And so they're going to have the pasta salad and they're going to have whole fruit at the end. So you don't have to say no or try to change people's behavior. You just have to meet them where they are.
Yeah, that's a really good example. Thank you. I'm going to kind of close us out a little bit with some questions about, on our prep call, we talked about the difference between being an order taker planner and a planner that guides decisions. And I've been in both places where it's like the client gives you the agenda. There's no breaks in it. It's over-programmed. And you're like, well, this is what I have to do because they told me, versus, hey, let's talk through your agenda. I have some things to say. So what advice do you have for people in this room, whether they're a hotelier or planner, to kind of shift from order taker? Because even a hotelier can guide that agenda decision too.
I think you have to have the ability to read the client, first of all, and understand, is there an opportunity? And you can even just ask them a question of, hey, are you open to feedback on your agenda? Also understand your client's mindset, and or if the client is a planner or a professional. And I use that term incendiarily as possible.
Okay.
I've said before, the difference between an event planner and event professional is an event professional will push back against anyone and everyone who's challenging, and they're going to push back on anyone who is potentially compromising the objective of the event.
Mm-hmm.
So that last minute change that they want to add a session or something of that nature, or they want to change the room configuration or whatever it is, if that is potentially going to undermine what the outcome is supposed to be, and if you're the person responsible for that outcome and you're not comfortable pushing back, you're not an event professional. You're a planner, because the planner is the person who gets hired to do what the other person says.
Yeah.
An event professional is there to guide the stakeholders on how to accomplish their objective.
Yes, absolutely. And it's such a fine line to walk, because we are in hospitality. We want to say yes. Yes, we'll figure out how to do it.
Well, if you're always saying yes, then there's something bigger you might need to think about, and is that, am I a people pleaser?
Well,
and if you're a people pleaser, you probably need
targeted.
to then maybe talk to a different kind of professional about some unresolved trauma.
Yeah.
Because if you're always seeking external validation, then there's something bigger going on that
Yeah.
needs to be addressed. But I am not nearly qualified to have that conversation. But there is a lot of science and a lot of studies behind untreated trauma and people pleasers. There's a lot of direct connection. And like I said, that's a different conversation. But really understanding, if you have a client who's looking to do what's best for their attendee or participant, as I like to call them. My friend Phil came up with that term. He's like, we never call them attendees. We only call them participants.
Because they're part of the event.
We don't want them to just show up. We want them to be a part
Yeah.
of it. But it's a judgment call. And you can always ask the question, are you open to feedback? And then you have that conversation with them. And, you have to be kind about it and say, hey, I think there might be some opportunities here for us to give some breathing room between these sessions, or give people a little more time. You said to me that connection was really important for you at this event. So if the break's only 10 minutes long, how deep of a conversation do you think people can have? Mm-hmm. And then let them sit with that. You have to shut up.
Yeah,
So that they come to terms with,
Yeah.
you're right. Then you're in.
Yeah,
And then they start seeing you as a partner and not as an order taker.
absolutely. I know. I always end with but it's totally your call. It's totally your call. But this is what I think. Okay, so those initials in the beginning that they introduced you, one of them was a WITT. Can you share what those accreditations are?
Yes. The PMED is for Pandemic Meeting Event Design.
Okay.
I don't think too many people are getting that anymore. I got it in 2020 very intentionally, because we were bringing people back together in 2021.
Right.
And I wanted the people at my company, this was when I was a corporate planner, I wanted them to know that I was looking out for them so that they would feel safe coming to our events. And that's, I think, one of the things that's really triggered all of this is, to me, that told people externally that they were important to me and their health and well-being was important to me. Mm-hmm. The second one, WITT-AP, that's a wellness and travel and tourism accredited professional.
Okay.
It's new.
I was going to say, how new is that? A couple years?
No, like a few months.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It came out this year.
Okay.
So there's a group called Wellness and Travel and Tourism, and they certify hotels as wellness properties. It can be an independent, it can be a Marriott, it can be a Hilton, it can be a Hyatt, it can be whatever, because the hotel has to go apply for it. They get secret shopped and audited. I'm also a certified auditor.
Oh, that sounds fun.
And then they get this accreditation because there's so much shenanigans in the wellness space, or wellness washing, as we like to call it, that this organization came up with a standard of care. And the WIT accredited professional just means that I understand what those standards are. I know how they can be applied. I know how they should be executed. And it's mostly it's the first step, and it's really designed for I don't want to say the transient traveler, because it could be also a business traveler, but it's not necessarily for groups, but it's a great starting point to understand what it takes to actually deliver wellness in a meaningful way.
Where do you see this going in this industry? Do you see this accreditation being almost required? Where do you see wellness in groups?
Well, the way wellness is going, the wellness tourism market, there is a wellness tourism market. It's valued at almost $900 billion. I think it's 893 to be exact. Wow. So close enough. It's ramping up. There was another study that came out that out of every category, the only category that people weren't willing to compromise their spends on as things got more expensive, health and wellness.
Wow.
So there are companies like WIT, like this other website called hotelgyms.com, where people are prioritizing what they want when they travel. Hotelgyms.com is like a gym rat first Expedia. So like you go on there, you search based on gym tier, hotel gym tier, and then you book your hotel based on how good the gym is.
That's pretty smart.
And then WIT, they have a number of hotels that are all certified on their website. So if you want wellness while you're traveling, you go to that website to figure out what hotel you want to stay at. So those two haven't crossed worlds yet, but they're fairly close. I would say the gym rat, the hotelgyms.com is a next level of hotel gym. But I think there's plenty that will be crossing there. But that's what's happening in the space is people are realizing that taking care of themselves is not something they're willing to compromise on.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think I'm going to shift it over to the audience if we have any questions before our final performance. So does anybody in the audience have a question for David about wellness or agenda planning or pushing back on clients?
Somebody's got to have something. Oh, we got a question here in the front.
Oh, she's coming with the mic.
Oh, here comes the mic.
And while she's doing that, just remember to check out our podcast. Quick commercial. Mine is The Weekly Seattle, and yours is?
Return on Wellness.
Okay.
Like return on investment.
Find it anywhere you listen to podcast. Here's our question.
How do you measure how do you measure putting on a conference made people healthier or not? Okay, well, so the where this title came from for me is the aforementioned PhD, MD professor. She's the executive director for a group called the World Federation of Public Health Associations.
Okay.
So you know what WHO is, World Health Organization. It's basically them on steroids. Like WHO belongs to this group, as does every other municipality of public health, in addition to academia that studies public health. Like that's who this group is. She said, your social health is the single largest determinant of your physical health.
Your social health is the single largest determinant of your physical health.
Okay. Yes. In addition to that, there's another woman named Julianne Holt-Lundstad. She wrote the Surgeon General's paper on the warning about loneliness becoming an epidemic.
Mm-hmm.
People experiencing loneliness or isolation have an increase in all-cause mortality, the equivalent of 15 cigarettes a day.
Oh, boy. Okay.
So you can see where this is going.
Mm-hmm.
So by bringing people together, but depriving them of breaks, you are impacting people's health. If you're bringing people together and promoting that social health, you're promoting health. On top of that, a lot of people have these devices. The smart devices. You get a report card every morning if an event is helping you or harming you.
Yeah.
When you wake up and you see your sleep score and it's like a 7, you're like, oh, crap. That's awful. You start reevaluating if you should be at that conference.
Right.
So while we're doing these health challenges, I will boldly say that some conferences are going to start connecting to these devices and start seeing how they're impacting people's sleep scores, people's steps, people's overall recovery, people's overall activity. And if people are going up and to the right versus down and to the left, you know that you're actually helping people with people's health. I think that's going to be like 2.0 of the step challenge.
Yeah.
Is linking into these devices and the APIs so that you can really measure it. It's not quite here yet, but social health is the first one. You can ask people, did you leave this conference feeling more connected, less connected, etc.? That's a very easy one. And if you have a good chunk of people who are saying they left the conference more connected, by default, dare I say, you have improved people's health.
And that's a good reminder to put that in your follow-up survey, to include some health and wellness questions in the follow-up survey.
Yeah.
I think we're going to... Do
we have one more, or do we get to go to the wrap time? Okay.
Okay. No worries. No worries. Well, make sure to check out all of David's podcasts and articles if you want to dive deeper into some of this stuff that we've just touched the surface with. So coming up on stage, we've got Dizzy Sense with Event Wrap. You can hire them for your next event. And she's going to give us a recap, I believe, of this.
While she's coming up here, I'm going to give a plug to the importance of music. I just did a session, a couple of them, at Smart Meetings where we talked about how important music is, and music can essentially be medicine, so much so that the Mayo Clinic pipes in music to their ICU ward, and it brought down the average patient cost by over $2,100.
Wow. Okay. Another little tidbit. Okay.
No
that's
pressure.
good.
Okay, I hope you enjoyed that conversation. What you missed is we did have somebody come up and wrap a recap to what we talked about. It was really cool, but that's why it kind of ended abruptly there. Well, thanks for listening, everybody, and we'll be back next week with our regular planned show. So we'll see you back here on Sunday. This has been The Weekly, with production assistance from Nick Patry. If you liked what you heard, rate us and write a review on Apple Podcast or Spotify. We love listener feedback, so if you have any story suggestions, comments, or complaints, email us at info@theweeklyseattle.com. Make sure to check back next Sunday for the latest local business news. We'll see you next time.